On September 12th, 490 BC, two armies assembled on the coastal plain of Marathon. On the coastline, the massed ranks of archers and spearmen of the Persian army assembled for battle. Uphill from the Persians, a line of bronze-clad Greek hoplites marched rapidly towards the coast. They were given a simple command, "At them," and then they broke into a run. The Persians unleashed a hail of arrows, but the great round shields kept the hoplites safe. Moments later, the Greek charge hit home. Spears lanced out, and a bronze shield wall collided with the line of wicker shields borne by the Persians. Once battle was joined in earnest, the more lightly armed Persians had no chance. They were simply overwhelmed by the heavier Greek infantry. By the end of the day's bloody fighting, only 100 Greeks had fallen, but thousands of Persian dead littered the battlefield. The Greeks had won a miraculous victory and driven the invading Persians from Greece. So the story goes. But is there more to this battle? I've always been fascinated by the story of Marathon. It's one of the most famous battles of antiquity, and it's easy to see why. A force of 10,000 Athenian and Plataean hoplites facing off against 200,000 Persians. A great victory for the Greeks. Given the disparities in casualties and the much heavier Greek equipment, it almost seems like the outcome was inevitable. But perhaps not. It's worth remembering that Persia was the superpower of its day. The Persians fielded massed ranks of archers, supported by elite cavalry, an army that had won them an empire stretching from Egypt to Afghanistan to the shores of the Black Sea. The Persians had already faced the Greeks before, during the Ionian Revolt, and won decisively. And they had a massive advantage in numbers. If they weren't stopped at Marathon, they would proceed to Athens and burn it to the ground. The stakes were high, and the odds were stacked against the Greeks, and yet they prevailed in the end. In this game, we're going to be recreating the final charge of the Greeks at Marathon, and the bloody fighting that followed. We'll be using the Midgard rules by James Morris, and playing with armies of 10mm miniatures. We're going to see what will happen if the Greek charge fails to push through the Persian lines, if the center breaks too soon, or if key commanders are killed in the fighting. We'll also be exploring what would have happened if the Persians had managed to deploy their much vaunted cavalry on the battlefield that day. In the words of Miltiades, "At them." Here we have the initial deployments of both armies. The Greeks are deployed in depth on the flanks and spread thinly in the center. The Battle of Marathon begins in earnest. On the right flank, Callimachus, supreme commander of the Greek forces, exhorts his troops to move forward towards the Persians. In the Greek center, General Miltiades moves his forces forward. The line staggers, but he quickly brings them under control. Greek skirmishers provide covering fire for the advancing hoplites. The lines move forward, and the Greeks prepare to charge home. As the Greeks move in for their final charge, the Persian archers unleash a hail of arrows. They cause few casualties, but the Greeks are slowed somewhat. Fighting breaks out on the left flank, and a unit of Persian infantry is routed, sending their commander fleeing to the rear. In the center, General Miltiades and his men struggle to break through the Persian lines. Several of their units are pushed back, and they hold on, hoping for a breakthrough elsewhere. The right flank is held by turncoat Greek hoplites in Persian service. One of those units is broken, while the other pushes its Athenian counterpart back. At the end of turn 3, the Persian army is dangerously close to breaking. In the center, the Greeks and Persians continue to trade blows, with both sides taking heavy casualties. However, at the beginning of turn 4, the Persian cavalry arrives on the right flank, returning from their scouting mission and charging the unprepared Greeks. The mercenary hoplites continue to roll up the right flank, while the cavalry prepares to enter the fray. General Aristides and his hoplites prepare to face their attackers, but they know their situation is hopeless.
Of turn 4.
Yeah.
And it's been a bloody turn.
Yes, it has been. So the Persians, the Greeks broke through in several places. Several Persian units were destroyed. In particular, a unit of the vaunted Immortals was just wiped out. So,
No morale left for the Persians.
yeah, no morale left for the Persians. So at the moment, the Greeks are winning. However, if the Persians can break 2 more Greek units, that could be enough to tie the game or make it a very hard-fought victory for the Greeks. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
On the left flank, Callimachus and his Athenians drive off the Persian levy and kill their commander, Artaphernes. However, on the right flank, the combined charge of the hoplites and the Persian cavalry breaks the remaining Athenian forces, and General Aristides is sent fleeing for his life. Clearly, he will neither return with his shield or on it. As the battle draws to a close, the Greeks have pushed back the Persians on the left and in the center, but on the right, the Greeks are shattered. The intervention of the Persian cavalry prevented a Greek breakthrough on the right flank and denied them a total victory. How does this compare to the historical result? It is a Greek victory. I'd say it's much harder fought than the historical battle. Both sides were reduced to 0 morale, but the Greeks did kill more units, so it's a minor victory.
Yeah, it's
for them.
a minor victory.
You don't have one place across the battlefield where the Greeks conclusively broke through. That is kind of the main difference for me. We don't have the Greeks in a position to reach the ships. And we also have our answer to the question, what would have happened if the Persian cavalry had actually shown up, and basically they broke the Greek unit on that flank and they sent the commander packing.
Yeah, there's like literally, these are the 3 Persian units here, including the cavalry.
How do you feel that the Persians performed in this one compared to the historical battle?
I would argue they did better than they did historically. The Immortals were a disappointment. Mm-hmm. That's where the Greeks broke through. That's just a bit of luck. Lucky dice rolling here, and maybe me trusting the Immortals too much and only backing them up with levies. But there isn't much else that the Persians have for their second line. The heroes of the game on the Persian side, besides the cavalry that showed up and literally rolled up the flank, and if, as I said, the game would have not ended because of loss of morale, that would have been now a major threat for Athens. With the cavalry.
The Greeks won at Marathon today, but they were unable to replicate the decisive victory of their historical counterparts.